Okay, so we are live. So tomorrow is going to be a big day, guys. A gigantic one, a big one, a really important one. We are going to have our first front-end development interview. So we will do some preparation for that. And yeah, so here is all the requirements. Here's what we need to know. Let me copy it onto our Google Doc so that you guys can see it. Wait, let me open Notion here. Google Doc. And then you guys can see it, right? I'll get some coconut and then we will dive into this. And guys. Wait, give me a moment. Let me paste it on here. And then we are going to do it. Open my chat. Right, so here is what we need to know. Right, let's just skim through this, and then I will skim through this, and then we will take out some bullet points that we need to do in order to do some preparation with this. Right, I'll fix some of the syntax, compiles. Right, so here, let's skim through this. So it's basically want us to function of website, a web application, right? So they want us to build a website. Our role is going to be front-end developers. So it's going to be a website or web application. That first of all is going to be our role, like collaboration with BAs. I'm assuming is, what does BA mean? I'm assuming business analytics. What the fuck? What is it? Bachelor of Arts? I don't need to know this. Dog shit, get out of here. Right, so basically UI. I'm assuming this is business analytics. Business analyst. Collaboration with business analysts. UI UX design. And backend developers. So they are basically the SQL and Python person, maybe PHP, something like that. If a web is going to be PHP, to troubleshoot and something code. Basically, just skim through this, ensure that all material produced with high quality and accuracy, timeliness, and complies with accessibility standards. It's basically SEO. Maintain graphic standards and brands throughout. So it's what is it called? Universal thingy. Well, what is a good word for this? Maintain graphic standards, and this is basically the whole theme of the website. It should be I forgot that word in English, but I remember it in Vietnamese. Uniform, right? Uniform. So make sure that our whole page is going to be uniform. Our web application, our navigation, our sidebar it should have the same theme with our whole page, right? Should be coherence, should be bonds together. It should bonds together. That's how we say it. Actively test and debug the program to ensure stability and accuracy. Debugging, I would have to look into this in order to see how do they actually debug programs, develop and maintain front-end code that improves analytical and statistical modeling and forecasting methods to support business. So basically, SEO, right? How we are going to put Google Ads, Google Analytics, all that stuff, add stuff into our code so that it can run smoothly and it can function well as well. Also, it's going to be it is going to help the SQL guy, SQL Alchemy guy, so that he can access into our data and then do something. I don't really know what backend people do. Well, I know like the fundamentals of it, but I don't actually know what do they actually do with it. Right, so basically that responsible for guiding tribe members on translating business requirement into design document. So basically we need to, right, business guy is going to, oh, this is how we want it to be. What we want you to design, what we want you to design, and code is going to be this, and then we need to design it and actually code it, right? Basically that, right? So all the technology that we need, right, is going to be JavaScript framework, first of all, React.js. So we need to focus onto mains, and then we do React.js. We need to go through that. Flutters. Let's see what Flutter is. I've never heard of Flutters. I did heard of it, but I don't know actually what it used for. Prefer Vue.js. Well, fuck. I don't really know much about Vue.js, but we can learn. CSS 3, HTML 5 is basically just JSON. JSON might be really. We would need to know a little bit about Ajax, and then experiment with your mobile responsive design, knowledge of PWA. What is PWA? An API technique and best practice. Right. Guys, give me a moment. I will go and grab my coconut, and then we will be doing this. Right. Give me a moment. Got my coconuts. Right, it's time to review this, right? So first of all, we need to do some React.js stuff. We need to memorize. React.js. Let's do React.js. I hate it when like this page. When I click this thingy up here, and there's 3 of them, it doesn't show me to the right section. It is just put me onto this page, and then I need to scroll down. Alright, so we do what we learned first React practice, local setup, quick. Let's study this. Are we done with all of it? Yeah.
One more thing that was highly requested from the first time I recorded this React course was how can I set this up on my local environment? Everything that I'm doing will be done on scrimba.com so that you can enter.
What happened to my keyboard? Ui rồi rồi. Okay, good. Right.
Interact with the same code that you see me writing. However, it's also a good experience to run it locally on your own computer and get a feel for what it would be like to actually develop React on your own computer. Again, our setup here is more of the easy way than the right one.
Right, so some of the fundamental stuff that we need to remember for React.js is going to be how to set up a React.js app in our local environment. How to set up React in local environment. Right, so
but for now what you can do is you can click the little
guys, if you guys want to see, if you guys want to have a look at my notes over here, I will retype it later on and then give it to you guys so that you guys can have a look at it, and it might be really important for you guys later on, right? So first of all, what we need to learn about React.js is that we need to learn how to set up a React file how to set up React in our local environment.
In the lower right of your Scrimba editor, which will pop up a little menu here, and there's an option that says download as zip.
This coconut is good, guys.
Containing the files that we're working on here. You can uncompress that like you normally would any zip file and open that up in any editor that you'd like, for example, Visual Studio Code on your own machine. Now, in order for that to run, I'm going to show you what that looks like on Visual Studio Code. Inside of Visual Studio Code, which is what you see in this screenshot,
it's going to be a live service
for some extensions. And you'll need to search for an extension called Live Server. It's created by Ritwick Day, and you'll need this installed to your VS Code in order to run the code that we have written in React. So you'll click the little install button. That's going to put an icon down at the very bottom menu bar in Visual Studio Code that says Go Live. And all you need to do is click that Go Live button, which will open a web page on a local server. I think it's maybe port 5000 that it runs. And that should launch your own React project on your local machine. as soon as you see me move toward a different setup for React that includes Webpack and downloaded dependencies from NPM and so forth, this is no longer going to work in quite the same way. But for now, for those that are curious, I thought I might just explain how you can get this set up on your own machine. Okay, that's enough delaying. Let's keep moving forward with the course.
I will go into here. YouTube, our best friend. How to start a React project in Visual Studio Code. There we go.
Hello guys, today I'll be showing you how to write your first React program using Visual Studio. So I'll be using Visual Studio. So if you haven't downloaded Visual Studio, if you have Atom or Wavestream, the process is similar. I'll be showing you how to download Visual Studio. So go to this .exe folder, request the Visual Studio. From here, VS Code. Maybe. Let's click enter and terminal. Just open your terminal now. So to create React app, you need to have npm or
Right. So first of all, we need to do open terminal. Open terminal, and then step 2 is going to be install npm. npm
node install. So to check if your node is,
it's going to be node install. It's going to be this v
install in your system or not. Just type node-v. This will
then
check.
we do
So if you haven't
npm,
installed,
right?
I have already published the video how to install Node.js and npm in your system. So I'll be again putting the link in the description. You can go there and just install the node and also check npm. And
I remember we need to say like pip install.
so first,
It's not going to be node,
hello
right?
guys, today I'll be showing you how to write your first React.
I don't remember any of this because I do it on this virtual environment. Welcome introduction to report. Markup y is declarative. Custom component. Locally with Vite. Give me a moment, guys. Install npm. Right, install npm. I remember somewhere in the course he teach me how to download the React file. I think it's here. Right here. Let's go here.
Earlier in the course, we saw how we could get a local React app up and running just using that in-browser Babel transpiler. Of course, at the same time, we also saw that it sent us a warning that said, essentially, you shouldn't do it this way in production. This is okay for now, but eventually you'll want to do something different. So in this lesson, we're going to learn how we can use Vite, which is a tool that we'll use to actually create a local React app. This way, it will be a lot more primed for actually bundling and pushing something to the app that you actually wanted to deploy. As a tool, Vite will take care of the transpilation or the compilation phase, which is what will take our more updated versions of JavaScript that we get to write as developers and translate it into something that is more widely supported amongst all the major browsers out there. And it will also take care of the bundling. I've put here a list of some popular bundlers, and if we were to dive into the details of it, Webpack, Parcel, and Rollup are all bundling systems, whereas ESBuild will use a more updated way to use ES modules and really deploy something in a much quicker way. Under the hood, Vite is going to use ESBuild, which gives Vite such a fast response time when you're just developing locally. If any of you have used Create React App in the past, you'll know that when you run your npm install and npm start after using Create React App to get everything set up, it oftentimes will take somewhere between 30 seconds or even up to maybe 2 minutes or more to get things running. With Vite using ESBuild under the hood, we're going to see it take a matter of seconds instead of minutes, which is an amazing improvement in the developer experience. So that's enough of me blabbing. Let's move forward and see how we can actually do this. You can click this screenshot here, which will take you to the Vite homepage, and it is pronounced Vite, which is French for quick or fast. And in order to actually use Vite, you will need to make sure that you have Node.
Right, install. Step 3 is going to be install Node. So we do
And npm installed on your machine. You can do this by opening your terminal and typing node -v to check for a version of Node. If you do have Node, it will spit out some kind of version. It likely won't be the same version that I got when I took the screenshot. And usually if you have Node, you will also automatically have npm, but just in case, you can also run npm -v to make sure that it spits out a version there. If you do not have Node or npm installed, you can follow the instructions that we'll talk about next. If you do, then you can kind of gloss over these next few steps. Now, I'm not actually going to show you how to install Node because there's a million YouTube videos out there that you can use. If you click on this screenshot, it will take you directly to this search, install Node.js with NVM. And that's the important part. I really recommend people install Node.js using NVM, which is short for the Node Version Manager. I've also set it up here so that you can click on this screenshot if you want to install it on macOS or Linux, and you can click on this screenshot if you want to install it on Windows. They are very similar to each other, although the API is not perfectly the same. Once you've gone through the instructions there to install NVM, you can use NVM to install the latest version of Node and NPM by simply running nvm install --lts. Again, this is specific to Mac and Linux. It is slightly different for Windows. Make sure you follow your system's specific instructions. Then once that completes, you should then be able to run Node-v and npm-v and get some versions. Again, it's probably not going to be these exact same versions that it was for me when I recorded this. Okay, with installing Node and npm out of the way, we're ready to use Vite. If you click the screenshot here, it will take you to the Getting Started page on Vite's website. But the important part here is that in your terminal, you will type npm
for with Vite type npm create Vite project Vite at latest
npm create repeat at latest. Make sure not to include this $sign. That's just the prompt that's already in your terminal. And when you do that, it's going to use Vite to ask a couple questions on your project. You can give your project its own name. Then it will have you select a framework. We're going to be using React.
5 is going to be selecting framework. 6.
Once you select React, you can choose whether you want just vanilla JavaScript React or React with TypeScript. For our purposes in this course, we'll just be using React without TypeScript. And once it's done, which, believe me, it will happen very quickly, it's going to give you some instructions. And so you'll just type in these 3 instructions as...
Type in 3 givens instruction. It's going to be cd Vite React. Next is going to be npm install. Guys, this is boring, but we have to know it. It might be really useful in the future because we cannot remember everything, right? We have to write it down somewhere, and writing down is probably one of the easiest way for us to remember it. Typing down isn't as good as writing down because it's probably one of the tradition method of getting things to be stuck in your head. It's going to be writing down stuff on papers with a pen and pencil so that you need to think about it. You cannot just look at it and then just copy it, right? Well, that's a stupid statement, but basically it's probably the best way, better than typing it out.
In your terminal. When you do that, you should get something similar to this, where it will install all the associated packages with your React app, and it will get things up and running. To run it, you'll write npm run dev, which is that 3rd instruction down there. And what's amazing about this is you can see that it was able to spin everything up in just over 1 second. That's truly incredible. If you've ever used Create React App, it's amazing. Now, if you go to localhost 3000 in a browser, you'll see the default app that spins up automatically. This has the code from Vite that is a bit of boilerplate code. At this point, you're welcome to essentially delete everything or just to work within the system that it gave you. Now, let's say, for example, I wanted to change the default logo from this React logo to be a Scrimba logo. All I have to do is change my logo PNG to something else. I, of course, have to have this inside of my project. The / means that it's in the same folder as my app.jsx file. And just like regular development, I can add things like a new paragraph tag. So now I have the Scrimba logo and a little paragraph that says, "Hello, Scrimba React students." Now, some of you might be looking at this line 3 that says import logo from scrimbalogo.png and wondering what the heck is going on there. In fact, if you look down here on line 12, it says that the source is equal to logo. This might seem a little strange if your only exposure to React has been here inside of Scrimba. However, this is the way that you would end up doing this if you're developing React locally. The reason is because when these files get all bundled and squished together into a single JavaScript file, any path that you may have included is going to be different in the bundled version. By importing our images, we're able to teach the bundler in the final version that we end up bundling for production where to actually find those. And it will readjust those paths according to its needs. If that doesn't make sense, honestly, that's perfectly my source. You're going to have a pizza. First thing I would have to do is
the next one that we need to learn is going to be props in React.js. React JS. Function, class, component. Alright, so all the name. Probably just a reusability. This function is valid React component because it accepts a single prompt stand for property object argument with a data return a React element. We call such component function component because they literally JavaScript function. Okay. Now we run into here. We go into props. Loading images with .map.
I am coming to you from the future again because for a bit of a loop, map over it more or less like this. Trouble to load. You can see that you're not going to have a data file that includes all of the data you need. Instead, you would actually be getting that data from some online resource. And second of all, because it just magically works. When you move the images to the public folder, things just kind of start working again. So that was just a quick heads up for anybody using Create React app. If you're following along here in Scrimba, you really don't have to worry about any of that for now. Okay, with that said, let's jump in.
Map experience. Alright, I think I'd click this.
It all comes down to this.
Oh, so we basically replace .map into what we call a props, right? So we need to know what props is. It's basically just reusability. It's used for reusability. Just a parameters / argument we establish as a parameters, and then we call it for an argument, which is pretty neat for reusability purpose. For example, here, if we don't use props, it's not going to know. So it's going to be props.author.name. It's going to be go into our data file, if I remember right.
Okay, I've got to be honest with you. I was going to have you style word flex container CSS for the details. Text style. We are now mapping over our data because it means that if the data ever changes, our page will automatically update. So if I were to, for example, paste in 3 more items here, I just copied the one and pasted it again, and then updated, our page is going to automatically update with all of the new activities that are included in our data. Clearly, this is a much better way to work as a developer where the data will change and your page doesn't need to. Your code actually stays exactly the same, and all that really updates is how that data is being used to display your elements on the screen. The second thing that I want to cover is this error that we have been seeing, or rather a warning that we've been seeing. This warning anytime you are using .map on data to create JSX elements, or rather an array of JSX elements. first, let me go to data.js and get rid of those 3 extra items we had. Now, over on our card, the way we can get rid of this warning is by simply adding a prop called key, and it very specifically needs to be key, K-E-Y. And I need to set key equal to something unique about this individual item. In this case, pretty much everything about these different experiences is unique. The image is different, the title, the price. However, for example, the rating is not different between this first one and the second one. So that's not something I could use as my key because it's not unique. Fortunately, when we're pulling data from a database, almost always we'll receive some kind of ID property that we can guarantee will be unique because the database is creating that as a unique property in the database. Now, obviously, I typed all of this in manually, but I gave it
interesting
so that we could mimic this concept. Over in app.js, I'm going to assign the key to be item.id. Again, I probably could have used the title or the price for this warning to go away, but when I hit save, you'll see that warning disappears. So those were just a couple of miscellaneous items that I wanted to cover. I'm not going to put our hero back in quite yet because there is one more thing that I want us to talk about, and that touches again on a sneak peek of conditional rendering. And we'll talk about that in the next cast. A phrase you might hear from the React community is that people love React because it's just JavaScript. Now, of course, under the hood there's things like JSX, which is a little bit of magic being performed by React. But I wanted to show you what that means by giving you another sneak peek at conditional rendering. Now, I've updated the little screenshot that I have here to show you this little badge down here that says sold out. And you might have noticed under this little badge will sometimes render a part of our page. Remember from the first time I did a little sneak peek on conditional rendering, the term is traditionally rendered.
Wait,
this little
what?
badge.
What is he? When did he change that into props? Ooh. Uh-oh. Project key props.
Okay, I've got to be honest with you. I was going to have you style the list of...
Well. Mapping component deconstruction. Prop practice. There we go. That's where we miss. Guys, this React stuff is kind of confusing.
Well, it's been a minute since we've started a new React app totally from scratch. So one last time, I promise the last time I'm going to make you do this, I want you to set up a React app completely from scratch. I guess as a reminder, Scriba is doing a little bit of magic for us. When we pull in these dependencies, it's setting up our React app basically for us, but I just mean in the coding part. I want you to get a little more practice on doing that from scratch. You can read through the challenge for the specifics on what you're supposed to have. So, pause the screencast and we're coming through this.
Alright, let's just skip through this.
Have the app rounds are create that file. Components are being rendered neat, some of the stuff that we've learned already. Okay, now comes the practice for actually using our props. We know that we need a setup prop, and I actually copied these already, so I'm just going to paste in the setups for these jokes, and then we have a punchline. Now I can tell that my punchline is going to make each of these a little bit too long, so while I'm here, I'm going to put these on their own lines. Okay, and then I have all the punchlines copied as well. Now, think for a second. I haven't hit save yet. Think for a second, what is going to change, if anything, on my screen here?
Nothing. Nothing is going to change.
Nothing's going to change, then you're right. And that's because I am passing props in, but my component is not making use of them at all. So let's do that. I'm going to receive the props. Just for giggles, let's take a look at what console logs when I console log these props.
But wait, I need to know where the actual prop stuff. Alright, understanding the concept. Prop part 1. Let's study this. I might go to sleep early.
Let's start by understanding the basic concept of props in React. What you see here is just a plain index.html file. We haven't introduced anything dealing with React in this. I want you to take a close look at the elements that you see here and see if you can figure out what's wrong with them.
This is
Let's
not.
start with the anchor tag. An A tag, an anchor tag,
Needs an
is
href.
intended to link you to another place. But currently we don't have an attribute like the href specified. Without an href, this link is essentially useless. We need the href property in order for us to send someone to another page, maybe like google.com. Similarly, the image element is basically useless without any kind of source property.
SRC.
We need to add this source attribute or property in order to specify exactly what image will be here. We could put the path to a local
Input
file,
is going
or
to
we
be
could put
type,
the address of a
and
file that's hosted somewhere on the internet.
what we are
Input
going
is
to be.
interesting because I think on its own it actually will it actually will put an input box that we could type into if we wanted to.
Yeah.
However, there are attributes or properties that we can add to
So
the
input
that will make it a lot more.
Input, we need a type of data that we're going to put in, and I think that's it. What we can do to make it look fancier is if we're going to type in what is going to say before we are going to type anything in. It's going to be
Let's say beefed up.
I don't
or
remember that.
Capable. For example, I can add a placeholder that says something like
placeholders.
first name, and that suddenly makes the first name
Yes,
text appear
placeholder.
inside of my element on the page. Or there's ones that have even more consequence to them, like the type property. If I change the type of this input to something totally different, like submit, now it changes that I'm sure your hard returns 1 and 2. Think for a second, what is wrong with this function? It's syntactically correct, but what's wrong with a function like this? Well, it's very, very limited in its capabilities. Right now, if I call add two numbers together, it will always return 3. Essentially, it's a useless function. Now, you might already see where I'm going with this. If I add some parameters, like let's say A and B, to this function, now I can dynamically add and return the result, or rather the sum, of the two numbers that I pass in. And with the small addition of these two parameters that, again, HTML elements, or let's try to understand props with a little bit more of a visual example. This is a screenshot taken from YouTube, and as you spend more and more time with a framework like React, each of them has bolded text that represents and as can exist in as a property the image and the title, the view count, the size that they can be nested. One of these is made up properties, starting to understand. Before we can continue on with props, we need to take a quick aside to talk about something. We've learned how our components will be returning JSX, which is a special syntax of JavaScript, or rather, it's something that's created by React and allows us to write our React code in a very declarative way. However, one of the most common things that you'll find yourself doing is trying to insert values from JavaScript inside of your JSX. Right now, we just have some text inside of our H1. But let's assume we had a think for a second. How would you change our H1 to no longer say hello world, but instead to say hello, or interpreted as the text content of a simply enough, I want you to finish off the view of our first service to go. Then any space in the text between my first name and my last name. Then it sees my curly bracelets off, thing that I puts that any, say, JavaScript code inside of my curly braces, saying date dot get hours, and then let's say we want to do a modulo 12 so that we get the AM PM hours, or rather like on a 12-hour clock. Hit save, and there we go. It's currently about 3. Maybe I say o'clock. And that's because for me, when I'm recording this, it's currently 3:21 p.m. And in fact, I wouldn't even necessarily need to create my date outside of here. I could say new date dot get hours, and I'm going to get the same result, even without doing it out here, because anything that I put inside these curly braces will be run as regular JavaScript. Now, personally, I think it's a lot something hours with the logic up here is create, and otherwise it's considered night. I probably this will still say after night. I'm going to change that back so that's not so weird. To help guide us through learning the syntax of using props in React, we're going to look at this little contact book that I created here. As you can see in our app component, everything is hard-coded. Each one of these divs, which I separated, make it full. And then I just want you to choose one of the one of these to challenge.
It's going to be contact name. Contact is going to be P Cat King.
Okay, so completely would have been easy enough. Inside of app, we will then import content to actually, I'm going to render 4 instances of my contact component. If you didn't make it this far, or you didn't take the chance to think ahead what's going to be wrong with doing it this way, I want you to think now, what's going to be wrong when I create 4 instances of this contact component?
Going to be the same thing.
Well, if I hit save, we get more Mr. Whiskersons. And as much as we left Mr. Whiskerson, we go with it. Just like every time we call up, every time we make an instance of that component. Now, since I have an infinite exact same, going to look at how we can consume that data from our contact component so that we get back to a working state where, just like we talked about how where we are limited because that's not defined in the HTML spec, with React, because this is a custom component, I can pass in any property or attribute that I want. We have 4 pieces of data in each one of our contact cards that we need to pass down to our instances of the contact component. So to do that, I can add an image prop, or let's call it img. This image prop can be the value of the path to the image. So I'll go ahead and copy that from Mr. Whiskerson here. Again, in the next lesson, we'll be learning how to actually consume these properties that we're passing in. But for now, we're just going to be dedicated to adding these properties to the contact component on our instances. Now, the upcoming challenge might be something that you decide you really hate me for giving to you. I'm going to do one more of these props, and then I will update our challenge to give you a chance to practice typing out your own props to each one of these contact cards. I'm going to put this on its own line because I already know I'm going to be adding a bunch of these. The next piece of data that I'll need in each one of my components is a name. So let's choose to call it name. I'll come down here and just copy Mr. Whiskerson's name and pass it in. And this is the point at which I'll update this challenge for you. Okay, once again, I promise I'm not doing this to be mean, but I do want you to do a little bit of busy work, mostly just to get your hands on the keyboard, contact, and so you probably can see that things are a lot more organized. Sure, we still have a good number of lines of code here, but the data is the primary focus. We can see exactly what data we're passing into our contact component, and then our contact component contains the specific display logic on how the data should be used. Of course, at this point, we haven't made any changes to the contact component. So if I hit refresh, what do you think will happen? Passed into this component, so we can get back to a place where we have our 4 different instances of our contact card. In the last lesson, we learned about how to pass values into our components using a very similar syntax that we're already used to with attributes in HTML. In React, we don't call these attributes, we actually call them properties, or usually for short, just props. And Unfortunately, it's very easy to get the data that we're passing into our components inside of our component itself. Right here, just like a function that takes parameters, I'm going to put the word props. In truth, I could call this whatever I want. In fact, I'll show you exactly what happens. I'm going to console log what we called whatever, and let me make a little room here, open the console, and hit save. Now, 4 things got logged to the console. I want you to think for a second, why did it console log 4 times?
Because we state the contact for 4
It console logged
times.
4 times because I have 4 contact instances. Every time React rendered one of my contacts, it ran the console log line inside of the code of that component. And if you look closely, you'll see that we have 4 properties in that console. Let me copy one of them out here so I can actually reference it. We got 4 properties here. If I clean these up, each onto their own line, you can see that what we received, what we're calling whatever, is an object that has properties that match exactly with what we put here as our prop inside of the component here. Let's see what happens if I maybe change img to something like the whole word of image. Again, I can change these to whatever I want them to be. So now when I hit save, if you look down below, the first item is receiving an object that now has an image property all spelled out, whereas all the other ones are still receiving an img property. Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much.
That's
So
a
let's
rabbit
come up
hole.
here
You
and
should not
change
go into that.
whatever to props, because props is what you'll usually be calling.
Prop is basically just I have the state props, and it will return the props, right?
This. And at this point, I want you to pause the screencast and see if you can figure out how to use this object that has all of the properties we want to update our component. This one's going to take some critical thinking.
Alright, so what we need to do is basically this. And we do props dot imgs. Right, basically just prop dot something, if I remember it right. Let's check this. Oh, we just need name? No, it's not. Dumbass. Props dot, copy this, do this, boom, 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 then we change app. Why is it not working? Fucking could. There we go. Now we need to change oh, this one should be I'm assuming we need to do this. Alright, what the fuck?
But I want you to really think through it, see if you can figure out how to essentially make it
Here. Props.image. This is going to be prop.phone. Here is going to be, this paragraph is going to be what? What the fuck is in here? But you get the idea.
Instances of Mr. Whiskerson, but rather have the correct data and images displaying here. Let me type that out as a real challenge. let's now hop to the curly brace. Awesome. My names are changing. Obviously, nothing else has changed. So let's go ahead and do the rest. I'll start with these easy ones. We'll get props image. This one may have been a little bit trickier for you. But that's coming into my C. So I'll change this back to IMG.
Yes, we will need to rewatch this
Save.
again.
And now the really...
The props is really important in React.js because it is a library that works on reusability and having small component combined together to make a big one. So props is really something that we really need to look into. Blah 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 blah. To look into this, right? Can't seem to speak properly today. Properly, not probably, not is properly. I can't seem to speak well today. Right. So this prop. So let's go component. Component lets you slip the UI into independent, reusable pieces, and think about each piece in isolation. This page provides an introduction to the idea of components. You can find detailed component API reference here. Conceptual components are like JavaScript functions. They accept arbitrary inputs called props and return React element described being what should appear on the screens. Right. So what we it's basically just for reusability purpose. Simple ways to define a component is to write a JavaScript function. Props, name. Alright, function props name. Okay, name elements equal this. Props author dot name. Okay, a lot of information, but we just need to remember that props is for reusability purpose, and it's just like a parameters and argument, but it should name props instead of anything else. Props, and props. That's it. That's basically what we need to know about props. Well, we need to go to sleep. Oh, we need to watch JSON as well. JSON and then PWA. What is PWA? Guys, I'm telling you guys, if you know everything in the description, in the job description, then that means that you are overqualified. So don't apply for that job. Apply for some job that you might not know every of this, so that you have space to learn, space to study and be better, instead of doing what you already know, right? So I know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js. I put this into my CV, but I haven't learned shit about it. So we will try to study APIs later, by the end of this month. Like next few days, we will going to learn about APIs, and then let's see what happens, right? Ajax, don't know about that. PWA, so we need to be like 50%. Or like we pretend we know more than 50% of the requirements, and we will be good. We'll be good. Progressive web apps. Alright, so what the fuck is web apps? Oh, shit. Jesus Christ. Usability purpose. Well, let me write down the purpose of props. Wait, why am I writing this down? For reusability purpose. Basically, function like parameters and argument like in JavaScript. Right. We are okay. Like in JavaScript, and then what else? What else? It can only be called props. It should be called props because it is conventional way, baby, right? Boom. Progressive web app. Alright, let's read about this. Let's see what the freak is progressive web app. Progressive sounds like fucking shit. Alright, let's do progressive web app. Web app that use service workers. What the heck is service worker? Manifest. What is that? An other web platform feature in combination with progressive enhancement to give user an experience on par with native app. It sounds like alienized language. So service worker essentially was. Can I explain it in normal human language? They are intended, amongst other things, to enable the creation of effective offline experience, intercept networks, request and take appropriate action based on whether the network is available, and update asset residing on the server, which will allow access to push notification and background sync API. Don't know what that is. Storable, blah 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 blah. Well, this is alien language. Don't know that. So we move on to the next one. It's going to be JSON. We need to learn about JSON. Let's watch it in Vietnamese.
Top difference is the vetting on both sides.
Xin chào các bạn, cùng trở lại với khóa JavaScript các bạn F8. Và ở trong video này chúng ta sẽ cùng nhau học về khái niệm JSON. Khái niệm này là một khái niệm mà những bạn mới học về JavaScript, những các bạn mới ra trường hoặc là những bạn là fresher, mà các bạn đi phỏng vấn xin việc, các bạn sẽ thi thoảng sẽ gặp phải cái câu hỏi JSON là gì. Thực ra là trong quá trình mình phỏng vấn các bạn ấy, thì thật ra là với những bạn fresher, với những bạn mới ra trường ấy, thì cái bộ câu hỏi dành cho các bạn nó không nhiều. Bởi vì các bạn chưa hề có nhiều kinh nghiệm, nên là nếu mà lôi ra những cái vấn đề trong thực tế để giải quyết thì các bạn thường không trả lời được, bởi vì các bạn là những người mới. Thế nên là cái bộ câu hỏi dành cho các bạn nó thường liên quan đến lý thuyết nhiều hơn. Đó. Thế nên là các bạn sẽ dễ dàng gặp phải những câu hỏi đào sâu về lý thuyết. Và JSON là gì thì đó là một cái câu hỏi các bạn sẽ
What is JSON?
hỏi đấy nha các bạn nhé. Thì để các bạn có thể trả lời tốt được câu hỏi JSON là gì thì các bạn đầu tiên phải nắm được trong JSON này nó là gì. Nó là cái định dạng, nó là một định dạng dữ liệu. Đó.
So it's a type of data, right? It's a type of data. It is a type of data. Hey, this page is actually pretty good. Yeah, I like F8 now.
Nó là cái định dạng, các bạn phải nhớ giúp mình nhé, nó là một cái format, nó là một cái định dạng. Có nghĩa là nó không
It's a
phải là kiểu dữ liệu. Các bạn mà bảo JSON là một kiểu dữ liệu JSON là các bạn sai luôn rồi. Nó là một định dạng dữ liệu. Nó chỉ đơn giản là gì? Nó là chuỗi thôi.
Format of data.
Nó là cái chuỗi.
It's a
JSON các
format.
bạn có thể viết trên máy tính, các bạn có thể viết ra giấy, các bạn có thể viết ra bất cứ chỗ nào viết ra được. Nếu mà các bạn viết theo đúng cái cú pháp của nó thì nó là JSON. Đó, các bạn hình dung như thế nhá. Đó. Thế nên là cái gì? Nó giống như cái việc mà chúng ta là một nhóm người với nhau, chúng ta đặt ra một cái bộ quy tắc. Đấy, là cứ khi tôi gõ ký tự này thì có ý nghĩa là như này, tôi gõ ký tự kia nó ý nghĩa là như kia, và cả cái cộng đồng của chúng ta học thuộc chung cái bộ quy tắc đó và chúng ta có thể giao tiếp với nhau. Thì bởi vì đó là gì? Nó chỉ là cái định dạng mà thôi, chứ không phải là kiểu dữ liệu. Các bạn nhớ giúp mình nhá. Ok, thì thằng JSON này nó được viết tắt của từ gì? Đây, nó viết tắt của từ là
JavaScript
Script,
object
Object Notation.
notation, basically.
Được chưa? Đây, những cái chữ viết hoa này, J này, S và O và N này. Đấy, JSON này các bạn thấy không? Đó. Thì ở đây này, cái thằng JSON này nó là một cái định dạng dữ liệu mà được JavaScript nó được xuất hiện ở trong cái ngôn ngữ lập trình JavaScript ấy. Nó phát kiến ra. Và bởi vì nó chỉ là cái định dạng dữ liệu được thể hiện dưới dạng chuỗi thôi, thế nên là nó sẽ không bị gắn chặt với cái ngôn ngữ này. Nó được phát kiến ra thôi, nó mang lại một cái cách truyền tải dữ liệu rất là đơn giản và nhẹ, cú pháp đơn giản. Thế nên là trong bất cứ một ngữ lập trình nào thì chúng ta đều có thể sử dụng JSON. Bởi vì chính vì nó là gì các bạn phải nhớ nhé, bởi vì nó chỉ là một định dạng thôi. Ngôn ngữ này và ngôn ngữ kia thì chỉ cần cùng hiểu được cái quy ước của thằng JSON là có thể hiểu được thôi. Thế nên là trong tất cả các ngôn ngữ lập trình bây giờ thì đều hỗ trợ cái thằng JSON này, bởi vì nó là một cái chuẩn rồi, nó thành một cái tiêu chuẩn rồi các bạn nhé. Sau này các bạn học về API, nếu mà các bạn học về backend hoặc là các bạn làm việc với API từ frontend là các bạn sẽ luôn làm việc với JSON thôi, vì nó vô cùng rộng rãi luôn các bạn nhé. Thì bây giờ cái hạng số 3 các bạn cần nắm được là gì? Cái ông JSON nó sẽ giúp các bạn thể hiện những cái dạng dữ liệu nào trong JavaScript đi, được chưa? Thì nó sẽ giúp các bạn thể hiện những cái kiểu dữ liệu gì? Thứ nhất là các bạn có thể thể hiện được cái dạng là dạng số này, dạng number này, dạng boolean này, dạng thằng null này, thằng array này, thằng object này, để mình xuống cái dòng nhé, object này, đó. Đây là những cái thằng mà các bạn có thể sử dụng thằng JSON để các bạn thể hiện nó. Thì có nghĩa là từ một cái kiểu dữ liệu này trong JavaScript thì các bạn có thể sử dụng cái định dạng dữ liệu của JSON để các bạn thể hiện những cái thằng này. Được. Bây giờ nhé, các bạn sẽ biến từ một cái object trở thành tức là từ những cái kiểu dữ liệu này trở thành JSON được. Và ngược lại, nếu mà cho các bạn những cái chuỗi JSON thì các bạn có thể biến ngược nó trở thành cái kiểu dữ liệu này được. Đó, thì nó suy ra nó có hai cái thao tác được gọi là gì? Thao tác mã hóa và thao tác gì? Giải mã. Hay còn gọi là gì? Hay còn gọi thằng mã hóa là encode. Hay còn gọi là giải mã là decode. Đó. Thì nói là mã hóa và giải mã thì cái thằng JSON này nó cũng không nặng nề đến mức gọi là mã hóa và giải mã, chẳng qua mình đưa thêm một khái niệm mà thôi. Thằng này nó chỉ đơn giản là nó chuyển đổi thôi, thế nên là hai cái từ chính xác nhất với cái thằng JSON này nó sẽ được gọi là stringify, có nghĩa là các bạn chuyển đổi nó sang, convert nó sang cái kiểu dữ liệu khác, một cái bộ mã khác, và để chúng ta có thể từ cái bảng mã đó chúng ta dịch ngược lại nó thì chúng ta có một thuật ngữ gọi là parser, có nghĩa là chúng ta dịch lại. Thì hai cái thằng này, mã hóa và giải mã thì nghe nó rất là nặng nề, bởi vì mã hóa là nó phải biến thành một cái kiểu mà chúng ta không hiểu được, mà chỉ có cách là giải mã thì nó mới quay trở về kiểu dữ liệu ban đầu chúng ta mới hiểu được. Nhưng với thằng JSON nó nhẹ hơn rất là nhiều, nó là stringify, có nghĩa là chúng ta chuyển đổi nó sang, và khi chuyển đổi sang JSON rồi chúng ta đọc JSON chúng ta vẫn hiểu. Đó, và sau đó là các bạn muốn trả nó lại kiểu dữ liệu ban đầu thì các bạn có thể sử dụng cái thằng parser này để các bạn cho nó trở lại ban đầu các bạn nhé. Kiểu mình biết sai kiểu chữ R sao hay là thôi ok thì sai thì biết. Rồi, thì bây giờ bắt đầu là hiểu về lý thuyết rồi, bắt đầu đi thực hành nhé. Chúng ta sẽ thực hành là gì? Như mình nói là JSON là có thể thể hiện được những kiểu dữ liệu này, đúng không? Thì bây giờ ấy, mình sẽ đi thể hiện cái kiểu dữ liệu này cho các bạn biết. Ví dụ như bây giờ nhé, mình khai báo một biến, ví dụ như là va JSON bằng một cái chuỗi. Tự mình sẽ viết bằng tay JSON ở đây luôn, bởi vì mình đã học và mình đã thuộc cái cú pháp JSON rồi. Bây giờ mình muốn thể hiện một cái số 1 trong JSON. Đó, một cái chuỗi của số 1 thì đây chính là một cái chuỗi JSON thể hiện một số 1. Được chưa? Bây giờ mình viết là chữ true vào đây hoặc là false vào đây. Đây chính là một chuỗi JSON thể hiện kiểu dữ liệu boolean, true hoặc false các bạn nhé. Mình muốn thể hiện là null, truyền null vào đây. Thì đây chính là JSON thể hiện null. Ok chưa? Các bạn phải hình dung nhé, nó là một cái định dạng dữ liệu dạng chuỗi mà thôi. Và cái nhìn cái chuỗi theo đúng cái cú pháp mà mình vừa viết thì đó là đang thể hiện dạng number, dạng boolean, dạng null. Còn bây giờ muốn thể hiện dạng array thì làm như thế nào? Thì các bạn sẽ truyền cái ngoặc vuông vào. Đó. Và bây giờ trong cái array này mà có những cái phần tử thì làm như thế nào? Ví dụ như bây giờ mình có phần tử thứ nhất là JavaScript, PHP chẳng hạn. Thì đây chính là một chuỗi JSON thể hiện cái array các bạn nhé. Các bạn để ý là trong JSON ấy thì cái cấp ngoặc ngoài cùng này nó là cái chuỗi trong JavaScript rồi, còn cái đoạn trong này nó mới là cái cú pháp của JSON này. Thì trong JavaScript trong JSON ấy thì để ngăn cách các key dạng chuỗi thì nó sẽ phải được thể hiện một kiểu dữ liệu dạng chuỗi. Ở trong JSON thì các bạn sẽ phải dùng cái cặp nháy kép các bạn nhé, nháy kép, nhớ giúp mình là nháy kép. Và ở đây thì để ngăn cách giữa các phần tử thì các bạn có thể sử dụng cái dấu phẩy này, và đây là phần tử thứ hai. Trong JavaScript các bạn có thể để thừa một dấu phẩy ở cuối này nó vẫn chạy, nhưng nếu mà trong JSON như này nó lỗi các bạn nhé, các phần tử nó sẽ gọn gàng không thừa cái dấu phẩy cuối. Ok, thì đây chính là cái mảng nhé các bạn nhé. Rồi, thì bây giờ mình cứ comment nó lại để mình chút nữa mình biến nó trở thành kiểu dữ liệu ở trong JavaScript các bạn xem. Bây giờ mình sẽ thể hiện một object thì mình làm như nào? Bây giờ trong object chứa name và tuổi đi, name và age các bạn nhé. Object là thể hiện một cái nhỏ này, và cái key của cái object dấu cũng phải là một cái kép, cũng phải là cái key mới thì làm thế nào? Nó phẩy ra như này, được chưa? Thì dưới dạng số trong JSON các bạn không cần phải đưa vào dấu cái kép, được chưa? Ví dụ tuổi của mình là 18. Ok. Phức tạp quá. Cái này nó có một cái cú pháp đã được định nghĩa sẵn ra rồi, chúng ta chỉ cần học và viết ra thôi, nó rất là dễ, nó cũng khá là thân thuộc với cái cách viết JavaScript đúng không? Chỉ khác là nó viết trong một cái chuỗi mà thôi. Thì bây giờ từ cái chuỗi JSON này các bạn chuyển đổi nó thành JavaScript thì làm như thế nào? Được chưa? Thì bây giờ này, ví dụ nhá, bây giờ mình sẽ làm một cái ví dụ như này cho các bạn xem. Mình có một cái biến a bằng 1 đi, bằng 1 này. Đấy, như ban đầu mình nói với các bạn, đây là một chuỗi thể hiện số 1 trong JSON đúng không? Biến nó thành JavaScript này, mình cần số log ra. JSON ở trong JavaScript nó cung cấp cho các bạn một cái đối tượng tên là JSON, viết hoa hết nhé, chấm parser. Đấy, như mình nói cái hành động này kìa. Parser ở đây được hiểu là gì? Là từ JSON trở thành, đây mình tách nó ra để cho các bạn dễ hình dung nhá. Thằng này là gì? Từ đây mà mình đang set ở trong JavaScript rồi nhá.
From that type of data into string.
Sang JSON. Được chưa? Từ JavaScript type.
So wait. I need to write it down. It's actually really useful. Stringify. From JS to JSON. It's only accept this, or it's going to be a false.
Còn đây là gì?
Parse is going to be from JSON to JS.
JSON sang JavaScript sang cái kiểu của JavaScript. Đó, ok, nhớ hai thằng này. Rồi, nhớ hai thằng này là ok. Bây giờ mình đang đứng từ thằng parser này, có nghĩa là mình đang biến cái chuỗi JSON này trở thành kiểu dữ liệu JavaScript. Như mình nói nó sẽ trở thành số 1. Đó, các bạn để ý nó màu xanh này. Màu xanh này nó chính là number nhá, các bạn không tin type này. Đó là kiểu number. Ok. Thì bây giờ mình viết vào đây là true chẳng hạn. Đó, nó trả về cái true này, kiểu true này sẽ là boolean type này. Đó, nó sẽ boolean. Ok. Thì có nghĩa là chúng ta thể hiện được cái gì? Kiểu number và cái boolean rồi. Kiểu null thì làm sao? Thì nó là chuỗi của chữ null thôi. Đó, nó ra thằng null này. Type of null nó sẽ bằng object đúng không? Đó, ok. Thì bây giờ nhá, mình mà viết một cái chữ linh tinh gì vào đây là lỗi ngay. Đó, lỗi ngay các bạn nhá. Thể hiện dạng chuỗi ở JSON làm thế nào? Thêm cái dấu nhảy vào như mình có nói, đúng không? Đó, ok. Thì bây giờ type of ABC này là sẽ là gì? Là string. Đó, đây là những cái kiểu dữ liệu đơn thuần thôi. Thế này thì mình nói thiếu nhỉ? Number string đi, cho thêm string vào nữa. Đó, ok. Và cuối cùng là chúng ta sẽ thằng array of object như mình vừa nói. Thì array of object mình đang có hai cái ví dụ đây. Mở cái array ra, ném nó thằng JSON vào đây. Parser JSON. Đó, các bạn thấy không? Nó trở về JavaScript nhá. Bây giờ mà type thằng này sẽ là object. Array là object đúng không? Đó. Và bây giờ các bạn có thể dùng cái vòng lặp để lặp qua bởi vì nó đã trở thành cái kiểu của JavaScript rồi. Từ cái chỗ này nó đã biến thành array trong JavaScript rồi nên chúng ta có thể dùng những cái bài học về làm việc với mảng để chúng ta làm việc rồi. Ok.
Okay, it's getting late. Need to go to sleep. Hope we get some blessing. Yeah, hopefully we can land a job, and it would be nice. It would be nice, guys. It would be nice. Right. My first web dev job. That might sound hard. This might sound good, so fun, right? So I'll end the stream